Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something, honestly, pretty mind-blowing. We are going to unlock a 2,500-year-old secret code together. If you've ever looked at pictures of ancient stone tablets and thought, well, they just look like a totally random assortment of bird scratches, you are absolutely in the right place. Because by the end of our time together today, you're going to understand the logic behind literally one of history's most mysterious writing systems.
So ask yourself right now, could you read the secret writing of the Persian Empire? Imagine standing before the massive rock reliefs of Behistun, carved right into a cliffside in Iran by Darius the Great, and actually being able to decipher those wedges staring back at you. I mean, it sounds like something strictly reserved for Indiana Jones, right? But I promise you, the underlying system is highly logical, and we are going to decode it together. Okay, let's dive right into this. Our primary tool for this explainer is a truly remarkable piece of 19th century scholarship. It's called the Glossarium Palaeo-Persicum. Think of this antique academic glossary as basically our very own modern Rosetta Stone. The linguists who compiled this painstakingly mapped out the ancient wedges using Latin, matching them to sounds we can actually pronounce today. Because, well, apparently translating one dead language requires using another one. But it's going to serve as our ultimate cheat sheet.
All right, here's our game plan. First, cracking the code. 2, consonants, the building blocks. 3, the secret of vowels. 4, ancient connections. 5, reading first words. And finally, 6, the final test. Starting right off with Section 1, cracking the ancient code, embarking on the decoder's journey.
Moving right along to Section 2, consonants, the building blocks. This is where we start decoding the wedges.
So I want you to mentally step into the sandals of an ancient scribal apprentice. You've just been handed a stylus and a slab of wet clay. The shapes you're about to make, they aren't just art. They're a highly advanced technology for recording human thought. Now, every language on Earth starts with foundational sounds, and Old Persian is definitely no different. And this image on screen brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're dealing with. Look at this table from our source glossary. At first glance, yeah, it's incredibly intimidating. You see columns categorizing sounds into gutturalis, made in the throat, palatalis, made on the roof of the mouth, and dentalis, made with the teeth. But hey, don't let the Latin terminology or those clustered wedges overwhelm you. We're going to break this down into totally digestible pieces. Let's pull out just a few distinct building blocks to prove that these wedges actually form a structured logical alphabet. The entire visual system is built on varying combinations of basically just horizontal wedges, vertical wedges, and angled wedges. 19th century scholars actually called those angled ones Winkelhaken. So for the guttural sound k, the symbol is remarkably simple. It's just one horizontal wedge followed by a smaller vertical one. For g, it's slightly more complex, looking kind of like a stack of horizontal and angled strokes. Now look at the dentals down there. The T sound is a vertical stroke flanked by angled ones, while the D sound is just a single thick vertical wedge sitting on a horizontal base. Once you isolate them like this, you realize, actually, scratch that initial feeling of chaos, it's a deliberate, highly constructed alphabet. All right, Section 3, the secret of the vowels, unlocking syllables. Now, ancient scripts just love to play tricks with their vowels. They act like a secret trapdoor for amateur readers. Some write them out fully, some completely ignore them, but Old Persian does something wonderfully sneaky right in the middle. Our 19th century source lays out some specific pronunciation rules for us. First, when translating to the Latin alphabet, long vowels get marked with a little hat, a circumflex, like ah. But here's the real trick. The absolute crucial point is rule number 4 from our glossary. The short ah vowel is inherent. It is built right into the consonant itself and is often entirely unwritten. So, if you see the wedge for ba, you don't just say ba, you say ba. Furthermore, if an unwritten ah sits right next to an e or a oo, they morph together to create a brand new diphthong syllable, like I or ow. Now, because of this inherent ah sound, Old Persian isn't exactly a pure alphabet like English. Our source text points out in Rule 8 that this actually makes the script a syllabary, meaning the wedges often represent a full consonant-vowel combo. And the 19th century scholars noted this was a fascinating vestige. It's an evolutionary remnant from even older, clunkier ideographic scripts, basic picture writing, that the Persians had brilliantly streamlined over time. Let's move to Section 4, Connections to Ancient Languages, also known as the Linguist's Toolkit. Now, you might be wondering at this point, if the very last native reader of the script died over 2 millennia ago, how on earth did the scholars who wrote our glossary know how to actually pronounce these syllables? I mean, they obviously didn't have a time machine. Well, take a look at these comparative tables from the glossary. The scholars used sister languages to triangulate the pronunciation. They literally lined up the Old Persian wedges side by side with Zend, which is the ancient Iranian language of the Zoroastrian texts, and Sanskrit, the ancient language of India. Because these languages all share a common ancient ancestor, figuring out a word in Sanskrit gave them a massive, game-changing clue to the phonetic value of those mysterious Persian wedges. What you should really take away from this is how deceiving appearances can be. Visually speaking, the stiff, aggressive, jagged wedges of Old Persian cuneiform look absolutely nothing like the beautiful, flowing, cursive scripts of Zend or Sanskrit. Not even close. Yet, underneath the visual design, linguistically and genetically, they are siblings. The grammar and the specific sounds perfectly map onto one another. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. Section 5. This is the fun part. Reading your first words, from wedges to meaning.
All right, so you've learned the consonants, you know the secret of the hidden ah vowel, and you know exactly how scholars cracked the code using sister languages. It is time to take all that abstract theory and turn it into undeniable meaning. Here is a real word you'd see plastered on almost every single royal monument in the Persian Empire. Look closely at the wedges on the left side of the slide. We've got a horizontal stroke with some angled ones, followed by a thick vertical stroke, and then followed by another cluster. What did the ancient king want everyone to read here?
That string of wedges spells Adam, and as the Latin translation ego right next to it reveals, Adam is the Old Persian word for I, first person singular. Boom. Almost every royal inscription starts with a grand declaration. I, Darius, the great king. You, my friend, have just read your very first word of Old Persian. So let's try another one. This one's a bit more famous. Look at this entry. Do you remember that K sound we looked at earlier? That simple horizontal and vertical wedge? Well, you can see it right there at the beginning, and it's followed by a complex cluster for R and U. Just sound it out with me. K, A, R, U. The wedges spell Kuru, which is actually the original ancient name for Cyrus, specifically Cyrus the Great, the legendary founder of the Achaemenid Empire. Suddenly, these aren't just arbitrary scratches in clay anymore, are they? They are the actual names of massive historical figures who shaped the ancient world, recorded exactly as they spoke them out loud. Let's see how this all builds together with one final, totally iconic word from our glossary. Scan the wedges right here. It starts with a P sound, has a distinct R, and ends with an S sound. Now combine them with those inherent A vowels we learned about earlier. Pa, ra, sa. Parsa. You have just successfully decoded the ancient name of the empire itself, Persia, the land of Parsa. Honestly, it is incredibly satisfying to pull back the curtain of time and actually read the name of an ancient civilization in its native script, isn't it?
Which brings us to Section 6, the scribe's final test. It is your turn to translate.
In just a few minutes, you've transitioned from a confused beginner staring at a wall of abstract shapes to a legit amateur codebreaker who can recognize the names of ancient empires. But before I let you graduate, let's quickly cement what you've learned. Remember our 3 core takeaways today. First, these wedges form a syllabary, which is a step right between an alphabet and picture writing. Second, always watch out for that invisible, inherent A vowel. And third, without the Rosetta Stone-like help of sister languages like Sanskrit, these wedges might have remained a total mystery forever. So, are you ready for your final exam? Because I'm not going to give you the answer to this one. I want you to look at the historical text and figure it out entirely for yourself. Using the phonetic spelling provided by our 19th century scholars, can you decode the meaning of the word kara? Just take a look at the entry on the screen right now. You can see the cuneiform wedges on the left, the phonetic translation, kara, right there in brackets, and right next to it, the Latin clue, exorcist. If you know a little Latin, or hey, if you just pause the explainer to look it up, you'll discover exactly what kara means, and you'll have independently decoded an ancient Persian word all by yourself. So keep looking at the shapes, keep asking those questions, and never stop learning. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.